Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to another Off-World Live Immersive rendering hangout. Just looking at readying the stream a little bit. Realized I started streaming with the screens in the wrong place, but it's all good. Okay, not sure why that's not 920 by 1080, but I think that's okay. Should be enough to show you what's going on. Yeah, I found some really cool stuff this week. Just to intro the stream a little more. We do these hangouts once a week where we look at the Off-World Live 360 rendering plugin and all the interesting things you can do with it. We've got 30 plus streams now. I think this is the 31st. Might be mistitled as 30 actually. But yeah, 31st stream. And yeah, we've explored some really cool stuff throughout. So do check out the previous streams if you want to learn more about rendering ultra high res 360 videos out of Unreal or using sort of 360 live streaming capabilities to preview um, preview immersive content from Unreal. There's tons of workflows and tons of knowledge that we've kind of figured out over the past probably 6 months or so now. These streams have been going on. So yeah, we do these every week on a Wednesday. Yeah, pretty excited about this development this week actually. We were looking last week at projections from onto a kind of cave wall so that you can, use this as a preview for a client to say, here's how your projection will look out of Unreal um, when we render or when we stream to your exact kind of cave mesh. You could give a really fancy preview, perhaps in a 3D model that they might have of their museum or venue using their exact kind of LED wall system. Yeah, last week I got to the point where I realized that the mapping wasn't exact, but I've cracked it in some form actually, and it's kind of got some more. It's kind of a bit of an iceberg moment, rabbit hole moment, where it's actually leading me to think that there's actually a lot more we could do with this mapping method that I've discovered. So I'll show you the mapping method just to get to the point, and then we can talk about how I got there and what it might mean for yeah, further things. So I was essentially talking to Gemini about how to do this, and we eventually worked out that mapping in Unreal is actually a really cool way to do it. So the UVs of this mesh are actually whatever, it doesn't matter what they are. Um, the material is doing all the work. And what we got here is an absolute world position subtracted by an actor position. This actor position is the origin point, the axis point. This is giving us a vector, and then using this camera vector to lat long UV. This is like the key node that Gemini kind of helped me find. This is sort of saying, regardless of the actual UVs, do a projection from the center from this point. So we've kind of got a end display system almost. So this is a 360 image, and you can see it's kind of wrapped around this sphere perfectly. And that in essence is what it's doing from within this mesh or within any mesh, I'm pretty sure. Then it's just this is simply to flip because it was upside down. So you can do a breakout float 2 components like the U and the V, and you can invert the V using a 1 minus, append them back together, put this into the UVs of a texture sample, as I say, the texture is a 360 image. It's talking about this kind of wrap and clamp setting. I'm going to test this out with some more meshes and see what happens here. But essentially with this material setup, we've got a material that, regardless of the UVs of the object that it's on, it's going to project a equirectangular image onto it, which is really cool. So yeah, we could look at other caves, other shapes, things like that. But I think essentially anything with the normals facing inwards. I guess we can make this material two-sided and check that out. Let's check that out really quick. Let's take this. It's kind of an interesting one. Not sure how this will go down, but let's see. Same material applied. Okay, so because this is the pivot point for this, let's make it double-sided. Yeah, from this point, you'll get the you get the right perspective. So it's saying like project the image from this point. We can visualize this a bit more with an edit. Let's turn off this two-sided just for this shadow. So yeah, we could edit the UVs, edit the pivot point using the modeling. Edit pivot. Unfortunately, this doesn't live update, which is a little bit annoying, but I guess you would probably have a measurement in mind where you're like, I want this to be X height off the ground. And you could use like a mesh to allow you to place that pivot perfectly. But as you can see, when you accept that, it's going to change. So we know it's based off of the pivot point, which is interesting. Also, we can make this emissive just to remove the shadow. Or we could sort of turn off like self shadow, perhaps. But since it's visualizing a screen, you probably want it to be emissive anyway. And yeah, so moving the camera to this exact pivot point, you get the sort of panoramic equirectangular view that you would expect. So this is really cool. It involves no UV unwrapping of the actual mesh. I thought that's pretty awesome. I guess a little bit of the journey I went down to try and get this together. I mean, it's not that worth running through, but run through it really quickly. Looking at kind of essentially the same thing in Blender. You got this kind of projecting from a different object. So this is done by, in this material, grabbing the object of a texture coordinate and selecting the sphere as the object, putting this into a mapping node, and then adding this mapping to the vector. We want to make sure this is set to sphere. And I've got this generated test card kind of image. So this is cool. This is kind of doing the same thing but in Blender. Hey, thanks for joining. What we're playing with today is grabbing any mesh, jumping off of what we were working on last week, where we were saying if somebody supplies to you a cave wall kind of mesh, so for an installation or something like that, and they say we want to preview uh, what this kind of custom screen will look like with a 360 output mapped onto it. And I just kind of worked out a method for doing this kind of thing in Unreal, where you can say, this is the pivot point, this is where the people are going to kind of stand and watch this screen. And then as a result, a 360 view is kind of perfectly unwrapped onto it, and the kind of UVs of the screen all line up. There's no seams, and it's all nice and tidy. So yeah, this is like achievable to this extent in Blender, but what you're doing here is you're not actually editing the UVs of the image at all. So exporting this via FBX or something to Unreal, Unreal's not going to be able to read these image mapping nodes from Blender, from an FBX. So instead, I thought it'd be quite cool to do this mapping technique in Unreal as well. Yeah, no worries. Thanks for your interest as well. So yeah, we've kind of got most of the way in Unreal, where so now this could have any live updating texture. I've just got this 360 image as a test card for now, but yeah, essentially we could say preview this cave in Unreal as a scene, and this is really useful for previs. So I'm working off my laptop at the moment, but let's see if we can just pump a texture. Give it a sec to warm up. You probably get the idea that, you know, on a machine that's a little more capable than this laptop, you could sort of move around an Unreal scene and use this texture as the texture sample for use this render target as the input for this material. Uh, there we go. Yeah, render target. Apply that. Yeah, this is now going to be the kind of live preview image that we can look at from this central position. Pretty awesome. You can show people what their scene might look like in real time. I'd love to show you this on my desktop computer, but yeah, it's not currently available. But yeah, really cool. Live updating, perfectly unwrapped texture. Fairly simple process to get that texture out. And yeah, we can like preview this from in 3D space here. This is really great because it's quite hard to know without a preview just by looking at this kind of rectangular image. Whether things are like too close, whether they're moving too quickly and things like that. So just having this extra layer of viewing things in real time in sort of a representation of the 3D space is super important, super key. For doing this in like Dome and things like that, you can totally use apps called like Dome Viewer. There's another one for other custom meshes as well. But you know, to think that you can quickly set up this kind of quick template preview in Unreal is really powerful, I think. What's interesting about this is that this is kind of doing what end display is quite useful for, just on one computer instead of across multiple computers. So NDisplay being the kind of virtual production tool, giving you a projection, like a single viewpoint projection onto a mesh. That's kind of what this pivot point is doing here. It's kind of projecting the image out. Every pixel is kind of looking at this pivot point. So it's really cool that we can do this with a custom mesh without having to use NDisplay, just with this material setup. So I thought what could be really cool is to try and get this live updating. So I'm going to see if I can figure this out on this stream, just at the last bit of the stream. And yeah, let's see what we can figure out here. So what we got in our material is that it's going to read from the center of the object. But what I would rather do is say, oh, let's reference another object. This is so much easier in Blender, but let's, well, I guess once we create the system, probably transferable. Okay, so we're going to use the telling us to use the construction script. So that sounds about right. So we want to get a blueprint together. Cave mesh. And sorry, just sorting out my screen on the other monitor here. So yeah, let's create this. Okay. Saying we could use a material parameter collection, which I prefer rather than dynamic material instance because I can get weird. Let's try the dynamic material instance thing first. So yeah, let's do static mesh. Did I name it something useful? Don't think so. That one. So we got that. We want the live updating material on here. Let's rename this now. Call it 360 unwrap. Make that the material for it. So yeah, this makes sense. I want to create a parameter in this material. Instead of absolute world position here, we want a vector. Origin. Call it something like that, I expect. Key. So construction script. Like set vector. That's what we do. Set vector parameter value, and then this will be the origin position. And well, let's add a. Can we get like just an maybe target point? Target point? No. Let's get just a static mesh then. We can give this. So there's a sort of axes or gizmo. Minus the cube. Let's make it yellow. Or position. Something like that. It's changed. That's good. It's changed. Where's the mesh? Here. Doesn't update there. Let's see. Should we make like an update button, maybe? How do you do that again? Custom event? I can't do that in here. How do you do a little button again? Okay, so maybe maybe it needs an object outside. Origin mesh. That is being added, surely. I think so. Okay. I don't see this being the thing to fix it, but that should be like selectable from the level, right? The way to do this, way select an object from the level. Well, I can definitely figure this out. Might just be one to feedback next stream. Maybe if we do like update. This wouldn't be ideal, but it's worth a test, I guess. Let's do like that instead. Promote that out. Let's see. So this will be static mesh, which is that. So if we're to like move that, then go update. Oh yeah, that is doing it. Okay, nice. Don't like that method. I want to be able to see the movement as I'm doing it, but so it should be pretty bang on if I update it from here. Yeah, cool. Okay, there's some progress. It's nice. How do we get it to kind of update in editor? Uh, oh, oh, that's just me moving the whole thing. Wait, that's interesting. Don't really know why that kind of scrolls around. Yeah, showing like some kind of seam. It seems. Seems a little bit odd the way it does that. I guess like okay, yeah. Just doing some kind of while it's moving around, doing something odd. Um, that's cool then. That's nearly what we had in Blender. Not quite, but some progress. Okay, so this doesn't take in AX, it's just the location, obviously. This is cool. It's like a mini end display wall mesh projection system. It's quite cool. I really didn't expect to be figuring this out this stream. It's something I've kind of wanted to know for a long time, how to do this. I want to try to get this updating in construction script. Let's ask Gemini. So the call in editor version works, but when looking at the set vector parameter in construction script, it doesn't always update the cube is moved. I am using a static mesh within the same blueprint as the origin point. Might as well show my little Gemini chat. Been finding this so useful for working stuff out in Unreal though. It's like talking to someone who's very, very knowledgeable about it and getting them to just sort of give you some pointers. Doesn't update. Okay. Get world location. I think that's a movable. Interesting. Let's see what that does. Let's keep this here as a test. Oh, it's set to movable. So it says it's optimizing. If I do that and then move this, move the whole mesh. No, I thought that might update it, but no. Okay, so good. Creating that on construct. Get world location, not relative. Yeah, that's a good idea. Use a billboard. So material parameter collection, it's mentioned. I like these because the sphere in Vegas style. Yeah, for sure. All about the super high res immersive stuff, for sure. Fun fact, the Tomorrowland visuals for the sphere in Vegas, 100% of that was rendered with the Off-World Live plugin. Among many other awesome shows. I don't know if everything in this whole Unity show but I think it might have been. This is all Unreal Engine visuals. Yeah, because we can do the tiling, we can render um, such high res. It's usually 16 by 16K, so yeah, you can render really ultra high res stuff. And Unreal making that process a lot quicker because of how good it is for quick rendering compared to kind of path tracing. Path tracing 16 by 16K is just a terrible idea. It's just gonna be giant render times. So yeah, that's why we're really excited about getting this high res immersive rendering plugin together. And then yeah, I'm just looking at interesting fun things we can do with 360 and immersive projections. So yeah, it's all very Sphere in Las Vegas style. Yeah, huge amounts of GPUs is definitely a thing. I don't know how it compares to AI image generation. Actually, that could be quite an interesting thing to compare. You know, the process of sitting in an Unreal Engine scene on a GPU constantly, uh, creating a 3D level and then rendering it or live streaming it at ultra high res, or compared to the GPU usage of AI. Oh, cool. Cool that you work for OpenAI. Yeah, got through a few. It's crazy stuff. Interesting to hear NVIDIA still, I'm sure they will always be, but always pushing to get new chips made and more efficient GPUs. Oh, awesome. I'll have to check out the community dev forum. There's some interesting chat goes on there. Yeah, power efficiency. It's the only way it's gonna keep going, you know. Because I would love to be able to continue using AI. It's unbelievably useful. An awesome thing. Of course, no one's gonna stop using it, but it's whether we can do so sustainably. Just thinks, yeah. Sadly, it's always going to be something that people are going to want the edge over each other, and having the powers of AI gives you such an edge in so many ways that yeah, it's a race to try and make it work sustainably for sure. So on-tick in editor could be cool. Don't know what it means by template variable approach, but that hasn't really given me the full. But I know what it means. I always trying to say something like this. And then can you do allow tick before begin play? I'm sure there was a bit of a longer process for doing tick before begin play, but because I'm not doing anything else on tick. Yeah, I didn't think that would do it. There's a whole other bit set up for that. That's a bit crazy. Yeah, I see. Hey, I had to clarify the answer. Yeah, totally. I don't I don't want to do allow take before begin play. I want to do material parameter collection method, I think. Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, I bet you've got some good tips on getting the most out of these prompts. Been looking into like the meta prompting, or it's not always called meta prompting, but I think Gemini calls it that. Of the, you know, you are a pro blueprints, um, teacher. Here's all the parameters behind how you are to give the best answers, give a variety of answers, and choose the best one. All this stuff, really interesting. Ah, cool. Definitely gonna jump into that after this stream. Ooh. Okay, so material parameter collection. And then we'll call this BC origin. Origin will be a vector, and we'll make that this. So what's it called? Material parameter. Generate parameter. Yeah, I've just got on so much better with doing this rather than filtering through tutorials and finding, where um what bits of tutorials to piece together. Quite like just sort of talking to Gemini as a free flowing conversation. It's really helped me like figure out some quite unique solutions to stuff. Really, really cool. So center point, cave material, collection parameter. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, and then MVC origin, parameter name, origin, cure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it can sort of scour the web. Like having someone who can filter through every single part of the web. I guess I probably need to break out float 3. Maybe a float 3. Definitely needs to be grounded in some knowledge of stringing this stuff together though, or else you can spend so long trying to debug. I'm alright at Unreal Blueprints, but anything like web developer or anything non-node based, it just takes me ages to figure out where the AI is going wrong and what to kind of bypass. Definitely need that grounding in the actual knowledge to really get the most out of it. Yeah, so that's all good. So got the world location. Ability is movable. This is a bit confusing. Pretty sure we want, yeah, no, how to Alright, so we can do in context learning, so sort of like it doesn't know to go and look for more information, but you can prompt it to go and look for more information. Is that right? Yeah, because definitely the being up to date, yeah, can change a lot with software stuff for sure. So is it just okay? I think what it's saying is we just don't create the dynamic material instance. We set the vector parameter value on the origin. Weird. Get the location. So just dealing with these two. Material origin. Maybe this is that. Not sure what it means by this collection input. Oh my god. Keep losing the place. make sure you look at the latest version. Okay, yeah, awesome. That makes sense. But we need collection. Collection. Okay, nice, nice. Cool. What and that? I don't see how this is going to be any different. Let's just see what this is, and then I'm sure there's more I need to do. Yeah. And this definitely has the right material. Yeah. Okay, so that works here. That works here. So that's kind of good. That wasn't the case in the other version, I don't think. Let's see. When I did this one. Oh, I crash. Let me take that as a cue to sign off for this week. Thanks for the tips, Spencer. Nice to have you hanging out today. Thanks to everyone else for hanging out. Maybe you can see that small win at the end there where we did have the cube updating the origin location for that cave mesh. I think that's really cool. That's kind of something, as I say, I didn't expect to be figuring out this time. And hopefully you can see the implications for that for preview of yeah, outputs of 360 on a cave. I'll try and get a machine together by next week where I've got a bit more bandwidth to show some live preview stuff and kind of the implications of that for yeah, previewing for clients. These kind of custom cave meshes within a 3D environment. It's really, really useful for prototyping and getting an idea of how your immersive videos will look. Yeah, as I say, we do these streams every week, and yeah, thanks everyone who's stuck around and tuned in. We'll be always exploring more interesting immersive stuff using the Off-World Live immersive rendering plugin. Thanks so much. Have a good one.